All right, hello everyone, and welcome to Rise Zion. I hope everybody's doing great and having a great Tuesday evening. We're here back in our painting studio, getting ready to start painting again on the Captain Moroni, which we've been working on for the past few weeks. Our last painting we finished, which was Mary and Jesus at the tomb. So yeah, I'll just start getting ready for our painting session here. I'll grab my paints and paint brushes. And while I'm doing that, I'll just go through my introduction, my customary introduction. Before we get started, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. And I've started something new in the chat. Feel free to chat. I've started a question and answer session, which says, send me in your questions or topics of interest. And I don't know, maybe that will help us to have or encourage different people who pop into our live stream this evening so that they feel comfortable asking chats. I'm always really happy with all of your guys' chats, by the way. We'll just see if we can get some more people engaged this evening. You can feel free to ask me about anything that you'd like. And I'm not really sure how this is supposed to work, but it looks like it's working. In any case, we'll see what goes on. We'll see what happens. And I will try to answer all of your questions as they come in as we're painting. So yeah, feel free to ask me whatever question you'd like. Yeah, something else that I need to address before we get started is please make sure to check out our website. Website is risezion.org. We have many products. Well, not many products. We have a few products online now that you are able to purchase. And part of the reason why we do these live streams is so that we have the opportunity to monetize without, we're keeping our doctrinal live stream posts separate from our monetized content, so that what I don't want to do is create a situation where we are monetizing our I will never lock behind the paywall content that I feel is important for people to know behind a paywall. And so that's why we're doing this, or having the opportunity to create some content that doesn't really matter. I mean, it does matter, right? We're creating some fun artwork, but it doesn't matter in terms of spiritual things. So that's why we're doing these live streams. Let's see how many people have joined us thus far. We have 19 concurrent viewers, you guys. Welcome to the channel. Feel free to ask me any questions that you'd like. Today, we posted a video that was about Sister Aliad's talk that she delivered in Brussels, Belgium. And it was such a good talk, and I really enjoyed analyzing that. Her remarks, as they seem to be more focused on the individual and how each of us can prepare to build Zion individually. Let's come over here. I'm going to switch the cameras so you can see the painting that we're working on. Interesting. I don't see any questions so far in our question and answer session, or any comments. Let's go to the live chat here. I don't see anybody in the live chat either. Interesting. Oh, maybe I ruined it. Well, we're getting a little late start this evening. I tried to make dinner quickly this evening, but that did not go according to plan. What I'm going to do is I'm going to come in here. Oops, that's not what I wanted to do. I'm going to come in and I'm going to actually start painting over this, because I was looking at this and I realized that it made him look a little odd. So I'm going to paint over this. I don't want this here anymore. And that's the great thing about oil paints. You can just come in and change it if you don't like it. That's like, there's too many panels. It gives him the appearance of having like a weird chest. And I didn't like that. So we're going to just paint right over that. We're going to pretend like it didn't happen. We're going to create this illusion. It didn't happen. There we go. And it's gone now. Yeah, and something that I thought that we could talk about too is There we go. We'll put like an interesting pattern in this chest armor too. We'll make it like elegant here. I'm just covering up that line basically that divided it. So now this is like one piece, and then he has his chest up here. So that, there we go. I think that looks so much better. Let me just back up and take a look at it from a distance. Interesting. Nobody has commented yet. That's not typical, or chatted. Oh, yeah, and something that I was going to do, I'm waiting for people to join us in the chat, but LDS Music has sent us a sample of her music. Her name is Kirsten, sorry. And I thought that maybe we could play that just as a sample. I think that she's still working on it. Let me see. She said I've just got over 25 minutes of music. Okay, yeah. So she does have an update. So we have a sample here. I'm going to play that sample for you right now so that you can hear what she's been working on. It's really quite exciting. And then we'll continue playing Dust Waves. And once she finishes her audio track, that will be available for purchase on the website as well, if she agrees to that. I actually haven't asked her formally if she wanted to put it on the website or not. Oh, Benjamin has joined us. Hi, Benjamin, from Ohio. How are you doing this evening? Looks like Benjamin is number one in the chat so far. Just turn this up a little bit. Hopefully you can hear that okay. Kathleen has joined us. Hi, Kathleen. Kathleen is just watching to learn techniques. Well, that's awesome. Kathleen, do you paint often, or are you just barely learning? Have you watched my YouTube channel before? I don't recognize you in the chats. We welcome everybody to the chat, of course. I just like to get to know everybody. All right, and I think that's the end of that sample. Kathleen says, I paint a lot of watercolor right now. I watch all of your content, but I haven't joined chats. Oh, well, welcome. I'm glad that you're here with us. And it's so fun that you paint watercolors. I do like to use watercolors for a lot of illustrations and things. It's such a light medium. I love it. You kind of have to let it flow the way that it wants to flow. And that kind of can be frustrating to me because a lot of times I like to have like total control over my medium. And watercolor is just kind of, it's such a uncontrollable medium, let's say. But yeah, I hope everybody's having a great evening out there. So yeah, today, we were going to start painting in some additional details. Yeah, Kathleen, I think that the techniques that I use in watercolor or in my oil paints could also be helpful to you as well. I always think that no matter what you're painting, you should always start out with a good drawing. And you really have to focus on a good drawing if you're doing watercolors, because a lot of times your paint or your drawing is going to show through. So you want your drawing to look good. Your paint's not going to cover up the drawing, right? So you want your drawing to look exquisite. I have Dustway's music on. So yeah. There we go. It's only got red on my fingers. I think it might be good to put out some of the red color as well. I just want to have kind of a point of reference for our colors. My red is all dried out. I'm going to come in here. I'm going to start adding some red for this cape. Just blocking in these shapes, these basic shapes. We're going to come in and add more details later. But once we get this color laid out, then that will help us to kind of see where everything is, if we need to make adjustments to our shapes. Add some more red here. So we can cover up some of our errors here too that I did in the drawing. So I say you have to have a good drawing, because in oil paint you can just paint right over your drawing if it's not perfect. Your drawing is more of just a guideline, but in watercolors your drawing becomes an integral part of the art piece that you're creating. Captain Moroni has to have a red cape because this is awesome. I do love this red color so much. It's one of my favorite colors. It's a pretty color. We can just use our flat square brush to fill up space. sometimes when you're painting, you can get kind of distracted by all the details and you forget to just work on general shapes first. And it's always wise to do the general shapes first, because sometimes you get working on details, but it turns out that you might just be covering up those details later. And so it's always wise to start out just with general shapes and not to get too sucked into the details, even though it's very tempting to do that. But when you do get sucked into the details, you can just waste a lot of time if you're just going to end up covering that up or changing it later. Always a wise idea to just work on the general shapes first and get that nailed down a little bit. It's like Lindsay Black has joined us. Welcome, Lindsay Black. Welcome. Craig has joined us. What are my predictions for the last general conference? That is a great question, Craig. We definitely have to talk about that. All right. Thank you, Kathleen, for your comment. I definitely appreciate it. But Craig says, what are my predictions for the next general conference? Well, I think that some people have been talking about how, how we talked about President Oaks, his address to Brussels. Some people have been talking about how that might be a precursor to what is going to be talked about in General Conference. I find that to be pretty likely as well, because of the fact that his last General Conference address was, his last General Conference address was, but anyway, I was thinking of my brain is not working. The October 2024 address was the one where he talked about contention and avoiding contention. This seems like a pretty good companion piece to that talk. The idea that of true unity, and that unity can only come through Jesus Christ. And I think that that's so important. I think that Elder Oaks has really been paying attention to what is happening amongst LDS members. And there is a huge contingent of membership who is upset with the prophets and apostles and the church in general, because they disagree with them in terms of politics. And that's both on the right side of the aisle and on the left side of the aisle as well. So Elder Oaks seems to be responding to the need of the membership. And that is a global need, I believe. It's not just in the United States, but there certainly is this idea that the church should follow my political leanings, whether they be the right side of the aisle or the left. And what Elder Oaks is saying is that our only allegiance should be to Jesus Christ, not to any political systems that exist. And it's a really interesting time that we're living in, for sure, with President Oaks as a former Supreme Court judge, delivering these kind of messages. Things are truly, really contentious out there in terms of political violence, especially. It's very concerning. I don't think it's ever been this bad, as far as I know. I haven't been alive for very long, and I haven't really researched the subject, but political violence in the United States, I think, is at a high. And so President Oaks responding to that, again, wouldn't surprise me in the least. I think that in next general conference, we'll probably have more talk about preparing temporally. That seems to be what is going to be coming in my mind, because we've talked a lot about preparing spiritually. And that's really great. We need to prepare spiritually, but we haven't emphasized a whole lot preparing temporally. And so I would imagine that at least some of the talks will address that. Certainly that's something that is going to be brought up, I believe. So we'll see as we get closer and closer to October General Conference. I might revise my opinion on that. Interesting. Let's see. Lindsay says, I love to watch painting techniques. Oh, what other predictions do I have for General Conference, though, Craig? Let me finish that before I move on to your next question here. So what else is going to be covered, I think, in General Conference? I think that the contention thing is going to be brought up probably another time by the prophet as well. Certainly the second coming is going to be discussed. That, I think, is unavoidable. That absolutely will be brought up. Let's see, what else? I wouldn't be surprised if we hear more about something that I thought might happen was a temple change that would allow kids to be in the temple. So temple changes, I think, might be on the way. That's been hinted at several times by general authorities. Sister Yi, for example, said that these changes are just the beginning. I wouldn't be surprised if they change the age limit so that younger kids can do baptisms for the dead. I wouldn't be surprised at all, because they keep on talking about the youth and how important they are in the gathering of Israel, which, as we know, is directly linked to the redemption of Zion. That is something that I hadn't really considered before until just recently, this idea that the redemption of Zion is linked to the gathering of Israel. But it's true. It's if you read those sections in Doctrine and Covenants 101, 102, 103, it talks about the gathering of Israel together as a part of the redemption of Zion. And it's just really interesting to look at that. Anyway, Craig says, I'll think of some more predictions as we go along. I can't talk and paint at the same time, Lindsay says. You're doing great, Seth. Well, sometimes I can't do that either. Depends on how much I've eaten the day. So like if my brain is just not functioning very well, I can't talk and paint at the same time very well. But Craig says, what are your thoughts about the fact that there are more righteous men than women? That's provocative, Craig. How dare you say that? How dare you kill that sacred cow? You're stirring the pot. Everybody knows, and it's commonly conceded information within the general body of the church that women are far more righteous than men in the church. But yeah, I mean, like, okay, well, let's be honest about this just for a second, though. I do not buy for 1 second that there is any difference in terms of righteousness between men and women. I just don't buy that. I think that men and women each have their different challenges. But for some reason, it became popular amongst the boomer generation to denigrate, not necessarily to even denigrate men, but to self deprecate themselves in favor of their spouses, let's say. And that just kind of got completely out of control in the church, I think. I don't believe that men or women are generally um, more or less righteous. And I think that that is. It also actually might come from the fact that people are trying to justify polygamy. In a way, they say that there will be more righteous women in heaven than men. And so polygamy, if one follows that logic, must be necessary because of that fact. But yeah, I don't buy that at all. I don't think that that is accurate. And in fact, if we follow the story of the creation story, I mean, each of us has different strengths and weaknesses. I think that perhaps that's the reason why we need each other as men and women. We both have strengths and weaknesses that complement when our weaknesses complement each other. Let's just say that. I think that women typically are more, I don't know, do I dare say things about women? Okay, well, we'll start with men first. Men are, hmm, sometimes a little lax, let's say, in terms of their duty at the moment, which is kind of sad. But I don't think it's always been that way though, because I mean, if you look at Adam in the Garden of Eden, he was the one who was more determined to keep his promises to God. So I think that things wax and ebb over time. Oh, Jose Javier has joined us. Saludos desde Venezuela, hermano. Gracias, bienvenidos. Bienvenidos. We went to a Venezuelan restaurant the other day, my friends and I. And I got a sandwich thing that was very delicious, but I don't remember what it was called. Let's cover this up. We're gonna use some oil. We're gonna make it spread nicely, and we're gonna spread it out. But yeah. Yes, I definitely love that red. It is Indian red. I love that red. It's so much. It's very much my favorite color in oil painting. It's such a rustic red, and I love it, love it, love it. It's so vibrant. We haven't even added the shadows yet, you guys, and it's going to look so great, billowing with all of its glory. Oh, but yes, going back to Benjamin's comment, to say my brother has dated at least 2 women, which he thought made Laban and Lemuel seem cool. Interesting. Okay. Yeah, generally, it's men who are going to church nowadays, and it seems that a lot of women have become um, more worldly, I guess you could say. It is true. The attendance rate across churches. Now, I don't know if this is the case with the Latter Day Saint, uh, with the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter Day Saints, but the statistics are showing that men are attending church more often and more frequently. Particularly, young men are attending more frequently than young women, which is very interesting. It does raise some interesting questions. Men seem to need that structure, definitely, but women do too. They just might not recognize that. But men definitely oftentimes are more likely to recognize the need for that structure until perhaps they don't view it as necessary anymore. You know, there certainly has been a push, sort of amongst Jordan Peterson type uh, thought, and it's very good to that has definitely popularized taking on responsibility and taking responsibility for one's own life and getting your life in order. That kind of thought that has definitely become more popular now with young men, which has probably led them to go to church. However, I fear that one of my fears about that, I think it's a good thing that they're going to church, but what I fear is that perhaps their conversion isn't true conversion. They're just there because of that's what you do, right? And it's like, okay, well, that's a good first start. It's like you recognize that it's good to go to church. just in terms of being a good thing for society to have that social fabric, right? So that's a good first start, but then we need to get into the spiritual, right? We need to have a deeper conversion. Otherwise, when circumstances become more favorable for young men, because for so long circumstances have not been favorable toward young men. Young men, they've been disadvantaged in terms of college and scholarships that are available that favor young women more often than men, and particularly if you're a white man. Now, if circumstances change, then what happens? Do they leave the church? So we need to have a deeper conversion than just how does this benefit me, right? I think it's a good first start to get people going back to church, but we need to have a deeper conversion than that. And I'm really not sure how it is for the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. I think that membership is still really high. Activity rates are pretty high in both young men and women, or relatively speaking. I know that there are some wards that might be struggling a little bit with the youth in general. But I think just comparatively, I think that the church is better off than other denominations. But still, I think that the church is still having some struggles with both young men and women. All right, let's see what other comments that we have here. We've got a pretty solid block of color there, don't we? We need to come in here and get around the hand. I'm not convinced where that hand is yet. I haven't really quite figured that detail out. I should have probably sketched that in a little bit better before I started filling this in, but we will figure it out as we go along. That's just what we'll do, I guess. Yeah, let's see. Craig Nielsen says it's starting to fulfill the fulfillment of Isaiah 3:16 through 24. Interesting. Why do you think that, Craig? I'm a little confused about that. Just clarify for me so I know that we're on the same page. Well, he said, I don't know about those statistics, men versus women, but I do know if Satan wants to destroy society, the fastest way would seem to be through women. Perhaps. Yeah, Kathleen says the adversary is attacking the family through women right now. It's sad. That's true. It's about the daughters of Zion being cursed. Craig Nielsen says, oh, that's right. Yeah, that's interesting, isn't it? I don't know. That could be. I hope not. It is hard for me to speak to that, though. I really don't know. exactly what's going on out there in terms of that, but bump. Okay. Okay. And we can come in and do shadows as well. Just making sure I get right into the crevices here. All right, can mix some of this purple. So how you get a nice shadow with this Indian red color is that you mix it with a little bit of your blue color. I'm using a warm blue, and it gives us purple, right? So, and that's sufficient because it's like with another red, you might want to add in burnt umber because of the fact that it just gives it a little bit of like a little bit of dirtiness to it. But with the Indian red, it's already got, it's kind of got a little bit of brown in it already. And so it doesn't need too much of that. So what we do is we just add and we can just add in our shadows here. Can't really see my reference material here. There we go. Yeah, we can actually start up here. This is probably a little more advantageous so that we have like the darkest dark here. Needs to be a lot darker here. And here we might actually have to come in and add like almost black because under his arm here it's going to be pretty black. I don't know. We'll see how dark it is once we add. So you can see the paint is still wet, so it just blends nicely. It's just like painting with butter. I love it. Love it. Some shadow in here. Okay, good. Okay, let me see if I got any other comments here. Let me read. Hi, Dustwave. Dustwave has joined us in the chat. I hope I'm not missing anybody's. Harambai said proportions may be off. That may be the case. We will keep an eye on that as we go along. part of that may be because we just haven't painted the arms or the legs in much yet. And if the case is that it's a little bit disproportionate, we will check that and then make adjustments as needed as we go along. Let's see. Yeah, Lindsay says, I see what the media is pushing for women to believe about themselves, and it's sickening. Benjamin has retracted a message. Craig Nelson says, it's actually something I'm praying about how I can help as a member. It's alarming, and I want to know how to teach my daughters how to stay righteous and not be fooled by the world. Benjamin A. Status says, being right is very often separate from being effective. All that could be the truth. That is a very good point, Benjamin. Eva says, hello. Kathleen says, if women in the church have strong testimonies, we need to be those different in happy ways that President Kimball talked about. That's a good point, Kathleen, being different, right? Being the happy, righteous people, being a good example to the believers, right? Or to the non-believers. Craig says, Ben, exactly, I pray I'm wrong and I'm trying to know what to do. Dustwave has joined the chat there with a hello. Hi, Dustwave. Charles Mitchell says, I just left the Columbia, South Carolina temple. Oh, that's fantastic. I'm glad that you were able to visit the temple. Trish has joined us. Trish is a member to the channel. Welcome, Trish. You are always welcome here. Hope you're having a great evening. Captain Scotty has joined us. Hi, Captain Scotty. How are you? Charles Mitchell says, I did, was late to help the youth group in the stake doing baptisms, the endowment, and sealing. That's fantastic. Yeah, I think, let's see, to address these concerns of Craig, I think that is a really good question. I think that what we can do, this is actually something that has been weighing on my mind as well, because we had recently a stake conference, and I haven't talked about this one yet. I might do a report on that if I can remember what was all talked about. But it was concerning because the focus of the stake conference was making sure that our kids have an understanding of the basics of the gospel. And so I think that might be a pretty good place to start if you're concerned that your kids don't know, or to find out, does your kid know the very basics of the gospel? Have them draw a diagram as if they were a missionary, right? And find out if they know the basics of the gospel, if they can explain using scriptures, the plan of salvation, for example, and draw a diagram of the plan of salvation together. So I think that is a good place to start, and then at least that your kids are doing their personal scripture study. And then from there, I'd say it might be a good thing to find out if you have a testimony, or if your kids have a testimony of the gospel, or in a relationship with Jesus Christ. And that's something that we've been focusing on the channel a lot on, is gaining that testimony for ourselves as well. Yeah, I think that those would be the first steps. If one is concerned, yeah, just do it kind of like a fun game, not like a accusation, or like make it a fun activity rather than like a witch hunt. You know what I mean? That might be a good avenue of trying to minister to the problem. I do think that scripture, really all learning actually has to start from the home first, because you can't really count on them learning in Sunday school, unfortunately. You just don't know what is happening at Sunday school. They probably have good teachers, probably, But, what if they're distracted by other kids? You just don't know. So really, the basis of all study has to come through the home. And that's a good way to test, to make sure that things are getting there, or getting taught, that need to be understood. And it might be a good first step. I don't know. What do you think about that? Okay, so this is going to be blown back this way. Captain Moroni. Oh, somebody has sent us a $50 super chat. Oh my goodness, that is so generous. Wow, Craig, thank you so much for that. I appreciate that so much. That is such a help to the channel. That is wonderful. Yeah, Becky has joined us. Hi, Becky. Becky says President Nelson has spoken to the women a lot. Definitely think we are under attack. He seems to be stressing that we understand our needed influence in the world and the church. That is such a good point, Becky. Thank you. How we access and use the priesthood power. Yes, absolutely. Yeah, and that would be the next step after that, wouldn't it? Wouldn't it be? So after we gain that testimony, after we're making sure that our kids understand the very basics of the gospel, making sure that they have a testimony, then I think that the next step after that is to make sure that we understand, or make sure that our kids understand how to use the priesthood power, especially our sons and our daughters. Both of our, especially our sons, both of them need to understand how to use the priesthood authority that they've been given to act in the name of God, to perform miracles in their life. And then once, and that kind of goes hand in hand with having that personal testimony as well, because like having these experiences are so instrumental in bringing about conversion, right? We start out with scripture study, but it's the application of the scriptures and the gospel in our lives that makes all the difference. And I've said this before to somebody else, and I can't remember who it was, but once your kids have that testimony of Jesus Christ and they feel his influence, and they have a more sure testimony of Jesus Christ, then nothing else matters. Like there's nothing that will stop them from going on a mission. And I was actually a little bit disturbed this past week because we had somebody from our ward express that their bishop had told them not to go on a mission, but to instead pursue their dream, which was to become something to do with baseball. I'm not going to say specifically. I don't want to embarrass somebody, but I was so disturbed by that. I was very disturbed and by that comment by the bishop. I do not know why on earth the bishop would say that. I'm hoping that there was some just misunderstanding. But the most important thing that anybody can do is serve a mission. I don't care what your testimony level is. Doing hard things is important. But in any case, yeah, I think that learning how to use the priesthood power that we've been delegated is so important, Becky. So thank you for bringing that up. That would be the next step, I think, after gaining that testimony. And I've been kind of recommending to people, maybe read. I don't know if it actually is it would be like perfect for every child to just pick up the lectures on faith. But I think that's a good base. Like if parents want to read that, because as I mentioned before, not everything in the lectures on faith is accurate anymore. There's it's outdated information in chapter 5, for example, I've noticed with regards to the Godhead. But it gives a very basic outline of what faith is and how we can have trust in God through understanding his basic principles. But yeah, maybe that's a good place. Might be a good study if you're interested in some additional resources to just get a very basic understanding of how to teach about faith, because the book actually has like a whole section after each lecture, and it's like a question and answer series where it asks the question, it gives the answer. You ask the question, gives an answer. And those might be good questions. Some of them might be good questions for your kids, They're very basic questions, some of them. It's like, how did mankind come to an understanding of such a being as God in the first place? And it's like, oh, through Adam, through the testimony of Adam. That's the answer. And it says, well, how? And then after that, how do you gain your own knowledge of God? And it's like through pursuit of him, right? Through pursuit of God, you come to an obedience to his commandments. After you have a knowledge of God, that's how you gain your own personal testimony of God. I think that's so important. But let's see, have I missed any other comments, you guys? I appreciate all of you being here in the audience and sending in these wonderful chats. President Freeman's live up to your privileges, just clarifying what talk I was recommending for daughters specifically, or especially. Thank you. That's a good talk. Lindsay Black says, great message. Thank you for the titles. I was told to focus on marriage too, Ben. That definitely used to be the messaging women received. I think the shift has to do with the hastening. That's what he said. If you desire to serve, you're called to the work. Yeah, and the fact that marriage age has climbed the world over, Utah being still kind of an exception. Did you serve, Becky? Serve a mission, Benjamin is asking. No problem, Lindsay. Yeah, Emily Bell Freeman's talk was fantastic. What I really loved about her talk too was the how she got into the specifics of covenants and how they relate to priesthood power as well. So it's like the more covenants that we have and keep, the more priesthood power that we have access to. So she seemed to be suggesting in her talk. That was such a good talk. And I specifically did a YouTube video on that. Such a good talk. All right. I think that we're going to have to end this live stream tonight, you guys, but let me know if you guys have any other questions before we end. And again, before you go, make sure to check out our website. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Consider becoming a member to the channel as well to help support the channel. And thank you, Craig, again so much for your generous donation. That is such a kind thing to do. And it will certainly help us to continue spreading the gospel through YouTube and growing our channel and keep on growing it so that we can spread our messages to as many people as possible is the ultimate goal. Yeah, we have available on our website pre-orders for t-shirts. We need to sell 30 t-shirts. And so if you like a t-shirt, check it out. We have 3 different colors: black, navy blue, and violet. You can pre-order and your shirt will arrive in approximately 2 months. Well, that's just an estimate. I'm trying to just get the pre-orders down first. But yeah, we're going to create products for you guys so that we can provide a separate service for people, so that they're just not, we want to provide services for people as well. But we definitely encourage and support all of your wonderful donations, and we thank you so much for them. All right, let's scumble this before we end tonight's broadcast. We've got to get our scumbling brush here. We're going to blend these colors out, guys. We have blending. Yeah, everything is for sale. We have the music for sale that you hear on the channel that was provided to us by Dustwave. We have prints from our previous painting that you can purchase as well if you're interested. We have, they make wonderful birthday gifts for people who have everything. We have the actual original painting as well that you can buy of Hold Me Not, which was our painting of Jesus at the tomb with Mary Magdalene. So yeah, you can check that all out at the website. It's a little hard to navigate the website at the moment because we haven't perfected it, but everything is functional. You can buy things. We've had several people order shirts now, and so we're very grateful for those of you who have ordered shirts. I love that red color, don't you? That red color is just so fantastic. I love it. Love it, love it, love it. Your scumbling brush just blends it in just perfectly because it's so new paint. Just like blending butter on canvas. I love it so much. Soft butter. Lovely. All right, you guys, I think that does it for tonight. We're covering this canvas. Look how wonderful that looks. That looks fantastic. I think something that might be making it look a little off in terms of the proportions is this skirt skirt, I guess you could call it a skirt. This protection that he has here kind of makes it look like his knees are much lower. In reality, I think that's right, because his hips are here at the belt line, right? So his hips are here. We have two, maybe that was a little long. No, it's about right. 2 heads, and then 2 heads from the knee down to the bottom of the foot. 1, 2, 1, 2. Yeah, that's correct. It might be just an illusion that we're looking at here. We might have to counter that illusion with something to make it so that the legs seem appropriate. All right. But yeah, we will consider this later. We will fix this and finish it. And it will look perfect and wonderful. All right, you guys, we are going to end this live stream. Let me just go through here and look at we're going to look at our chats here and see if I can see any other comments that I may have missed or questions. Yes, being different from the world gives us hope, Lindsay Black says. Craig Nelson says, been teaching them and we are doing a lot of church lessons. Very good. Ruben has joined us. Hi, Ruben. I didn't notice you there. It says, hi, beautiful souls of unconditional love and light. Thank you for joining us, Ruben. Just Wave says, the one thing I've discovered is people watch even when you don't realize who you are makes a difference. Very good. Becky, I might have already read this part, you guys, but Becky is saying President Nelson has spoken to the women a lot. So I did read that comment. Good. Ruben says, I love President Nelson so much. He's an inspiring man, Dustwave says. They have potential as elect women and queens, Becky says. Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, that was from the portion of Doctrine and Covenants that Emily Bell Freeman read. That's a very good scripture. Fred Stewart has joined us. Hi, Fred. I don't recognize you from the chat before, so welcome to the chat. Fred says Sunday school classes are so short that there isn't time for much real learning. That is true. That is true. Unfortunately, a lot of the teaching has to be done at home, and it has to be done personally as well. But when you're just a kid, it's kind of hard to focus, and you really need your parents to help you out with that. That is true. And the same goes for normal schoolwork as well. And if you struggle with reading, that is just such a hard thing. You need to know how to read, everybody. Make sure your kids know how to read. Don't just assume that they know. but it's possible that that we have a real problem if kids are having trouble reading, that they can't read the scriptures. So that's something to keep in mind. I'm not suggesting that anybody is a bad parent or anything like that. I'm just saying, just check your bases, right? Just check all the bases, make sure everything's good, right? Just like you're checking a car engine. Ruben says, I'm ready for the priesthood of Mary already. Well, I'm afraid that there's probably not a priesthood of Mary. There's probably just a priesthood of God, but yeah, they both function for both men and women. So that's good. Dustwave says, wow, Craig Nelson, you are doing good. Thank you again, Craig, for your contribution. Trish has left us a comment that I missed. She says, Becky, I love your comment. I was so happy when President Nelson spoke on the women's power through priesthood. I was in an awful living situation. My bishop explained to me the power. Oh, that's fascinating. So that was able to help you. That's really fascinating to hear. Your personal testimony, Trish. Becky says, President Nelson's talk 2018 Sisters Participation in the Gathering of Israel and 2019 Spiritual Treasures are awesome. And President Freeman's October 2024 talk. Absolutely. It is awesome. Benjamin says, that story similar to my older sister. Okay, not sure I understand that. Whether someone goes on a mission is between them and our Father in heaven. That's true, but I think that the most important thing that anyone can do is serve a mission. Benjamin says she was told by her bishop to focus on marriage instead of serving a mission. Yeah. Dust Wave, if you have the ability, it will change your life. Absolutely. Benjamin says, my sister pretty much told him to shove it. She served a mission anyway. Awesome. Becky said, President Freeman's live up to your privileges. Just to clarify. Lindsay Black says, great message. Thank you for the titles. I read that. Good. Looks awesome. Benjamin says, I can honestly say that some of the coolest things I chose to do in my life were because I got to hear voices of certain women. That's good. Lindsay Black says, I love that women and men need each other. We truly complete one another. That is true. That's so true. I mean, we each have strengths and weaknesses for sure, and men and women together are a great team. So we're glad to have the gospel that teaches these things. Captain Scotty says, hope everyone will have a good night. Yes, absolutely. Good night, everybody. I hope you're all having a great evening. Hope you have an enjoyable rest of your night as well. Captain Moroni is looking amazing. Amazing, Lindsay says. Thank you. LDS musician. Oh, we played the sample of that music, by the way, at the beginning of this live stream, Kristen. So it was really cool. We enjoyed it. Dustwave says, sorry, Bishop called. I have to do some food orders for people before it gets any later. Oh, yeah. Well, that's great. We should definitely do that. We don't want people to go hungry. So yeah, we will talk to you guys later, you guys. Kirsten, yes. Kirsten, okay. Yes, we did play a sample of the song. So at the very beginning. The ads make your video go black frequently. That's interesting. Wonder why it does that. It's weird. All right, you guys, the current chats, the current people in the views are the current viewers are 16. So that's great. That's pretty good. We've had 216 viewers in total. So that's great. All right. Well, we'll talk to you guys soon. We will talk to you guys later, and I hope that everybody has a great evening. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and we'll talk to you guys later. All right? See you later. Bye.